Bayt and the followers of Ahlul Bayt. There's a tradition that says, "Ghareebun yabqi ghareeb." Only a ghareeb cries over a ghareeb. Someone who's lonely. Someone who's lost everything. Someone who has no ahl to him. Someone whose children are gone. Someone who has no one to hug him. That is a person who's ghareeb. Tonight you notice that those people who are broken-hearted, Allah brings them to the Majlis of Husain. Because that man's ghurba relieves your pain. There is no one in this world who can take the pain away from your heart but the one who's the most ghareeb. Today you find your Imam. Imam is Zaman alayhi salam. Alone, tradition says. Today as you sit here, you have people next to you. If anything happens to you, there's someone there for you. Yesterday 2 people passed out. People came rushing to them, hugged them, gave them water. Today you find your Imam is so alone. He recites himself, he cries himself, he beats his hand on his chest himself. But you know what the tradition says? The tradition says this. One man saw in a vision. He says, I saw the Mahdi go to Kufa. As he went to Kufa, he would put his hands on the floor, as if he was covering a footstep. These are what tonight is about. These are the nights of maghfirah, the nights of rahmah, the nights for those people who have no one. But remember one thing, Zahra, by accepting the sacrifice of Hussein, opened up a new bab within the rahmah. That mercy is so powerful that until the day of judgment, whoever attaches themselves to Hussein, you'll find the mercy of Allah comes down upon them. This is why they say, never lose hope. Never lose hope. Allah gives you these nights. The purpose of these nights are very simple, so that you can come back towards Him. These are those nights of mercy that know that when a Shia's door is closed, you find every door closes but one door opens. That is the door that you're here today. Look, today's a Monday. It's a working day. If you've come here, it's because somebody's called you here. You don't come without that invitation. Somebody's pulled you towards here to bring you here. That very person who calls you here also prays for you. You know the purpose of your existence? The purpose of your existence is this. The purpose of your existence is this. When a mother in pain looked towards her father, said, Ya Rasulullah, my son is killed and he's not there. Who's going to cry over him? Look like him, say, Allah will create a nation whose purpose will be to cry over him. That dua was you. You are those people who bring this legacy and take it forward. You know how you bring this legacy? Through your tears. It's tears which transfers to tears, which transfers to tears, which take this legacy forward. Your movement is a movement of swords or guns. Your movement isn't even a movement of the tongue. Your movement is a movement of the tears. That when these tears come into your eyes, you find somebody prays for you. So therefore you're not alone. You're not alone. You know why? Because you have a power behind you that prays for you. At every step, at every move, don't ever feel that you are alone, but you're not. This is why we have today. This is why you have the blessings of these majalis of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You know what it does? It revives the hearts of the believer, gives the believer hope, connects them to wilayah, takes them on a journey, tells them that there's somebody here. To quote to you a tradition goes like this. Tradition says that on a night like this, you'll find in 10 days' time, 10 days' time or so, when the nights of Arba'in begin to flow. Arba'in is important. On a night like this, Arba'in time. Some of you have been to Karbala, you've seen. As Arba'in night descends, millions of people go towards Husayn. Ayatollah Sistani once said, he said, listen, when you go to Husayn, just remember one thing. Don't ever be deceived by the gold and the silver. No, Husayn's body is still... When you have that awareness in your mind, what happens? Connection comes. In this given time, what is the most important thing? You have a hadith. We start off on a tradition of the Imam. Tradition of the Imam goes like this. It says that within Akhir al-Zaman, Mufaddal bin Umar comes to the Imam. He says, Maulana, tell me about Akhir al-Zaman. He replies, he says, I can see in Akhir al-Zaman the state of the Shia community. I can see that Shiism is going to be divided into 12 sects. Different groupings, different ideologies. It says in a period of time like that, when you see different ideologies and different groupings come forward, and then he continues, he says each one of their ideology will be so strong that one person comes on the minbar, you believe them, another one comes, you believe them, another one comes, you believe them. In the last 15 years, that's exactly what you're seeing. You go back 15, 20 years ago, there was one middle road. Today you're seeing multiple middle roads. This person says he's correct, that person says he's correct. Imam said there's going to be a time that's going to come like that, which we're seeing today. Mufaddal begins to cry. He says, Maulana, tell us, where does the truth lie? You know what the Imam replied? To paraphrase the words of the Imam, he says, connect onto the light of the heart of the Imam. There's a nur which is there. That person who takes you to Husayn, that's the person you go behind. No, that person who takes you to Husayn, that in a time of confusion, where you find that there's problems, where you find that your children are leaving the pathway, you go to those people who take you onto the pathway of Husayn. Go to the pathway of Husayn. Why? Because Husayn is what? Allah says in the Quran, He is Allah who takes human beings min al-dhulumat ila nur. What is nur? Dhulumat is a lack of guidance. Dhulumat is a lack of guidance. Dhulumat is a lack of guidance. Allah says He is the one who takes human beings min al-dhulumat ila nur, to light. What is this light that Allah talks about? In the Quran you find that there's a huge emphasis on the concept of light. That He takes someone into the light. You know what that light represents? In this physical world, that light represents the light of Husayn. Why? Thursday night comes, Amir al-Mu'mineen goes into Sajjad. When he goes into Sajjad, he begins to cry. As he begins to cry, he says something. When a person has nothing and is broken, then they go into Sajjad, then you see what Allah says. How do you appeal to Allah? If you truly want to know how to get closer to Allah, especially in those days when you find that there's no door open, Amir al-Mu'mineen teaches you a way. Goes into Sajjad, begins to cry. If he wants something and he teaches you how to get something, how do you get it? Here he recites. He says, Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasa'at kulla shay. He says, Allah, I appeal to you from your mercy that encompasses all of creation. Now go and ask Ayatollah Hassan Zada Amli what that means. He says, that rahmah that encompasses all of creation is none other than Baba Rahmah, Rahmatullah al-Wasa, as-Sayyid al-Shuhada. Says, today if you want to know the keys to get towards the rahmah of Allah, move towards Husayn. Because in a time where you have nothing, you find that you have Husayn. Why has Allah put it like this? Look, Rasulullah is not the milak when it comes to guidance 100%. You know why? Because he says to follow me is to follow the Ahlul Bayt. If you come to me, what happens? Everybody can come around me. I'm Rahmatul Alameen. Quran says there's certain people who are munafiqun around the Prophet, right? You find munafiqs around the Prophet. Quran is saying that. He says, so therefore it's not me. Follow me, love me. But the fact is this, for your completion, you've got to do something more. there's an extension to that. What is that extension? Tradition continues. Ahlul Bayt. Why? You don't find any munafiqeen around Imam al-Muttaqeen. As many munafiqeens you find around Risalat, you never find any of them around Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why is that? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen is that mizan that takes the good and rejects the bad. Today, if you want to know, right, we said this in Fatimiyya, Allah, yes, Qadir al-Mutlaq, creates everything. Right? But this table, Allah doesn't create it directly. Nor does this house Allah create directly. In the same way, heaven and hell, Allah doesn't create directly. Heaven and hell is a creation of two things. When Fatima is happy, then heaven is created. When Fatima is sad, hell is created. Look, this isn't just rhetoric, this is a reality. Why is that a reality? Who's Amir al-Mu'min? Qasimul Jannati wal Nar, right? If he divides heaven and hell, it means that through him heaven and hell is decided. So this is why the tradition says, if you truly want to understand your maqam in the eyes of Allah, look inside of yourself and see how much maqam Ahlul Bayt have. This is why ulama have said, Ayatollah Bahjad and others would say. You know what the Urafa would say? Amazing things. They say, look, so that there's a special karam of Hussein over the heads of certain people. Imam Hussein puts his hand over the heads of certain people. You know who those people are? They're those people who come to the Majlis of Hussein looking for an excuse that somebody says Hussein and they begin to cry. If that's you, know Hussein has a special lutf over you. He's watching over you. And in your deepest moments when you find no one there, Hussein calls to you and says, my servant, come back to me. Hassan Ilahi would say, Allama Tabatabai, brother, he says that once there was a student of ours said, Hassan Masqati, he's buried in Hyderabad. Said Hassan Masqati, and he was sitting in Najaf. As he was sitting in Najaf, he was doing tawassul, right? And the way that you do, a big problem had befallen him. As he was doing tawassul, from the back of the room a voice came. And that voice was this, said, Hassan, do you think we don't know your hal? Do you think we don't understand that your heart is broken? Do you think that we've left you alone? We haven't left you alone. We know exactly your hal. You know what? Why don't you come back to us? You turn to us, you see. You extend your hand and we'll extend everything towards you. Why? Because these are the nights of hope. These nights give you hope. Give your family hope. These are those nights. But look, question is this. In this day and age, therefore, when you see so much confusion which is spreading, when you don't understand what right and wrong is, you've been told to go towards the Imam. How does one attach themselves to that Imam? That's the important thing. Look, the sixth Imam expresses to us, Unwan al-Basri's hadith is there. He says, look, when it comes to ilm and ma'rifah, these are the nights of ilm and ma'rifah. But ilm and ma'rifah doesn't come by reading books only. إِنَّمَا هُوَ نُورٌ يَقْذِفُهُ اللَّهُ فِي قَلْبِ مَن يَشَاءُ. The idea is there's a light in the heart of the believer. That heart and that light needs to be there. For the heart to be there requires the heart to be open for you to access that light. The entire movement therefore is a movement of light. What do? You got to go back into your heart. How does one go back into the heart and remove all of those clogs which are there? It doesn't come by reading books. Many people read books, professors read books, there are many people who have read many books. That's not the access point. The access point is this, that when you humble yourself on the door of the Ahlul Bayt, this is why the sixth Imam alayhi salam says, he says, sometimes I put difficulties in people's lives, I'll do that. Allah puts difficulties in people's life. The purpose why He puts it into the life of a Shia is so that you can open your eyes and come back to the Ahlul Bayt. Had it not been for the fact that your hearts are sealed, Allah would never put any difficulties. But even a difficulty becomes a rahmah. The reason being is this, it opens your eyes that there's a bigger reality. That's what He does, He opens your eyes up. Why does it? He doesn't test you because He hates you. The reason why He puts a difficulty in your life is because He wants you to open your eyes and He wants you to come back to us. Then the seventh Imam concludes, he says, because of these tests, then the Shia becomes what? Shia becomes at that maqam to be with us. These tests are there for them to become that so that they can be with us. Otherwise, you don't have the haqq to be with us. We're something else. But when they see your broken heart, then they pray for you to say, Allah, maybe they're not worthy, but at the same time, they're going through this pain because of us. Therefore, let us take them by the hand and bring them towards us. Test comes so that Allah calls you towards Him, so that you can realize. The hadith. Hadith says, look, man by nature becomes very arrogant. So He says there's three things. Allah says, if I didn't put these three things in man, man would be arrogant. What are those three things? First one He says is death. When death befalls a person or people around you, humbles you. Because you realize eventually, I need to go somewhere, there's a destination. So the second thing is this. Allah will put you through poor health. The purpose of that poor health is so that you can humble yourself. Have you not seen people who are in good health who are arrogant? Look at me, look what I can do. Bang, Allah takes them down. Why? Allah doesn't like arrogance. Third thing is this. Allah will test you with poverty. And when He tests you with poverty, at that moment then, your responsibility is to humble yourself and to move back to the door of the Ahlul Bayt. But let me tell you something. Let me give you a trip. Muhaddith Nuri narrates this. My brother was asking me, he says, what did Muhaddith Nuri, we're discussing on the way here. I said, I'll tell you today. Muhaddith Nuri gives an entire story within his book. In that, one of our great scholars, he said there was a man in Shiraz. That man in Shiraz was arrested and he was put into jail. That night, this man in Shiraz said, did tawassul of the fourth Imam. He said, Maulana, for the sake of the fact that you were also a prisoner, you helped me because I have no one to help me. That night he went to sleep. As he went to sleep at night time, he sees something. He sees that Rasulullah comes in his dream. At that moment, Rasulullah gives him a philosophy. If not anything, then take this philosophy home. Believe me, it will benefit you in this world and the hereafter. For as long as you live, if you understand this philosophy, I guarantee you that nothing will harm you. Muhaddith Nuri narrates this. I'll give you that philosophy. The philosophy is this, honestly speaking, look at Shiism and see. Look at Shiism, we have everything in one tradition. Others would beg for this. And you find Muhaddith Nuri narrates it. He said, Rasulullah says something. He says, listen, my servant, if ever a worldly problem befalls you, do not take the tawassul of three people. Why? Because those three people are there for your akhirah. When you feel depressed, when there's sins in your life, when there's something blocking your dua from being answered, at that moment you go to these three people. Otherwise, when it comes to the umur of the dunya, you don't go to these three people. He says, Ya Rasulullah, who are these three people? Replies, he says, my sons Hassan and Hussein and my daughter Fatima. Why? They're lofty. They're far more lofty. You don't understand. You don't understand how lofty they are. To go back to the tradition, right? Today, every single marja of the Shia, with a wasta or without a wasta, goes back to one scholar. And that scholar said Ali Qadhi, teacher of Untitled Chapter. I told you last year how he was born. How was he born? His father couldn't have any kids. 10 years had gone, couldn't have any kids. Just like you go to Karbala for Arba'in, what did he do? Father said Ali Qadhi goes. But he goes differently from the way we go. When he gets to the shrine of Hussein, he puts his head on the door of Hussein and he rubs the dirt in his hair and he begins to walk inside. And as he begins to walk with tears in his eyes, Ayatollah Bahjat will say, if you want to know that Hussein has accepted you to go in the shrine, look into your eyes and see. If the tears are flowing from your eyes, that means Hussein has said labbaik to you to come in. Bahjat would say this. That is the milak. Today if you're sitting here, your majlis you wanted accepted, how do you do this? Look, for everything, hadith says arif and bahaqqih. For tears, there's not even one tradition that says arif and bahaqqih. Tears are that priceless. Tears come into your eyes, tears begin to drip, heart is broken, they accept it. There are people who sit in the majlis of Hussein who can see Hussein and Hussein can see them. And when Hussein sees them and when they cry and they say salam, the reply comes back. Right? This is what, if you're far away from Hussein, you know sometimes you're sitting in a majlis, your heart's broken. You feel Hussein. You feel, I wish I was there in Karbala. You know what Mawla says? He says, at that moment, give salam on my jad. Even from your heart, you can give it. You know why? Reply comes back. Tears come into your eyes, salam's been accepted. Very simple. Very simple. Sayyid Ali Qadi, therefore, father says, he says, I went into the shrine. Now look at this. He says, I went into the shrine. Straight away, I wanted a son. Where did I go? I wasn't going to give Hussein any zahma. I went directly to Habib ibn Mawahir. Grabbed onto his shrine and said, Habib, Hussein is more loftier than that. Habib, I know that your head used to be on the door of Zahra. Give me a son. But don't give me a normal son. Give me a son who will be a hujjah, that every single alim will have to have been a student. That night Habib comes in his dream, says Hussein is more loftier, I'll give you a son. Imagine, if Habib can do that, what can Hussein do? So therefore Rasulullah says, this is the adab of asking. This is why some people go, doesn't happen. Some people go, have what? Adab of asking. You can go to Hussein, no doubt about that. But here Rasulullah says, he says, Hussein, ask for the big things. Ask for the big things. Spiritual things. But then he continues and he says, and if you're ever in prison, ask from Zain al-Abidin. And he continues, and he continues, and he continues. He says, and if you're ill, then ask for Musa ibn Ja'far. Especially if you have eye problems. Khatib al-Baghdadi writes, Sunni scholar. He says, before the women, Sunni women of Baghdad will go to the doctors, the tabib, they would go to Musa ibn Ja'far. And when they went there, spiritual and physical cures were there. Then continues the tradition. It says, and if you ever want to go to a journey, and you want to be preserved in that journey you want to be preserved, whether it's on the land or is on the sea, then take the wasila of who? Ali ibn Musa. And if ever you have a problem with the rizq, then go to the 9th Imam. And then he continues, and then he says something strange. He says, and then listen, if ever you find that you're stuck in such a way that the swords of your enemy are between your necks, at that moment call for my son the Mahdi, and you will see he'll come and defend you. But he doesn't stop there. Then he finally concludes, and then he says this, and he says, if you have an enemy and you want to seek revenge from that enemy, then call my brother Ali ibn Abi Talib, because that person, that Madhar al-Ajaib will come and he'll help you. The tradition doesn't end there, but I want to end the tradition. If I continue, you won't be able to take it. But I'll give you a small part though, and then I'll conclude. The man looks up and he says something. He says, Ya Rasulullah, I don't understand something. He said, what don't you understand? He said, if Ali takes revenge, then can I ask you a question? I says, what? He says, what about Zahra? Rasulullah, tears in his eyes, replies, says, this was the Mashiach of Allah. It's difficult to go on in that tradition. So look, what are we saying? When you are in trouble, the fact is this, we go back to the Ahlul Bayt. All of the Ahlul Bayt are there. There's a wasila. Wasila of each one of them. The reason why the wasila is there, so that we can attach onto them, specifically in Akhir al-Zaman. Teach your children, go on ziyarah, as many times as you can. You know, I'll tell you one thing. There's no excuse that I don't have any money. Allah is qadir and mutlaq, but He wants you to do some zahmah, right? I've seen myself, people who don't have money, but what does Imam Hussein want you to do? Some zahmah, do some movement, some harakat needs to be there. You will see automatically the ticket comes and you go. And I've seen people who are extremely rich, but today the nasib is not there for ziyarah. You know why? The heart is not there for that movement. You attach yourself to Hussein, believe me. Kamil al-ziyarat is over there. Sheikh Abbas Razawi says, if a person does not do the ziyarah of Hussein once every 3 years, they are kharij from the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt. Right? Now go and say, if a person has the ability to go to ziyarah once every year, they should go once every year, specifically within this time and this period. Why? Because your children and you, your guidance relies on that. Hussein's guidance is light as nur. Right? What happens? Your heart begins to rust. In these countries, your heart begins to rust. What is the hukum of the Imam then? You know what he says? He says, for hajj the sharait. If your life is in danger, then what? You don't need to go. Here the 10th Imam says, if your life is in danger, what more danger than you have than your Iman? At that moment he gives the hukum, he says, go to Karbala. Go. These are those nights. But why do I say this? Because we must be reminded. That's the thing. But when you go, because a lot of you are going, when you get to Hussein, what do? Right, there's a protocol there. Understand this protocol, you'll understand how to connect with the Imam. What is that protocol when you go there? What is that protocol? Ask. You'll see. What does Imam Zain al-Abidin teach you? Shall I tell you something? Karbala is that land that every prophet has been on. You know why? Karbala is not a land only. It's not just a land. It's a reality. There's a haqiqah to that. In the same way there's a haqiqah to Hussein. Right? Haq of Hussein. Let me give you a story because it just happened to me recently. It's come to mind, I'll give it to you. Because I want you to understand, have ma'rif of what Hussein is. Just last week, 10 days ago, I was in Minneapolis. I'd gone to Minneapolis 4 years ago. When I'd gone there, there was a child whose spleen had been cut in such a way that he was internally bleeding. Power in his legs had gone. Father said to me, he said, listen. He said, I remember when you came to do Majlis, my son was FaceTiming from the hospital bed and you were talking about Shafa of Hussein. He said that we went to every doctor in America. None of them, for whatever reason, were willing to do this operation because they said it's a deadly operation. He said, then I went to Boston. There was a professor from Harvard who said, I'll do the operation. The day of the operation, he himself had a heart attack. He was in the ward next door. He says, eventually, I didn't know what to do. One doctor said, I'll do the operation. He went there. He said, it's a routine operation, I can do it. You know what he did? Cut the spleen. What happened after that? He said, I'm going to repair it. He said that 7 times this guy tried. Other doctors said, you're going to kill this child. Don't do it. He left him. At that moment, this person said, it was Muharram time. Do you remember? I said, I remember. He said that my sister was sitting in the haram of Sayyid al-Shuhada. As she was sitting there praying, says a man came to her, said, this is Khaq Shifa. Take it and give it to so-and-so's son. She thought, who is this man? I didn't ask any question. She said, I went back to Muscat and I forgot. At night time when I fell asleep, the same man came in the dream. Said, take this Khaq Shifa, take it. Said the next day, 24-hour service, I posted it. That boy said to me, when I got the Khaq and I recited Dua Tawassul, then I ate it. He said that my legs and everything came back in such a way that the next day when the doctors tested me, they said, we have never seen a recovery like this, that everything has come together. So at that moment I said to the boy, I said, do you still have this Khaq Shifa? He says, I have it. I said, give me a piece. Why? Because even the dirt of Hussein, I said, even if it's a grain, he says, say it, take the grain. Honestly, if I was to recite this upstairs, I would have brought it down. That miracle in front of me, this boy now runs cross country, legs are sporting, everything is there. But the one thing he had in his heart, Aqidah for Hussein, 21-year-old. Now ask yourself the question, people say that our children don't have ishq. Here's a child, born in America, raised in America, 21 years old, but you look at the ishq of his heart, when the name Hussein is mentioned, you look at his eyes and see. Why? Karam of Hussein. Why Hussein has a hikmat? We don't know what the hikmat is. We don't know what the hikmat is. I asked him afterwards, I said, listen, did you ever give this to anyone? He said there were 2 people suffering from cancer, both of them we gave, both of them got shafa. Right? That is khaq of Hussein. Imagine what Hussein is. You know why Hussein's khaq becomes shifa? You know what the hadith says? If I can narrate it, I'll narrate it to you. You know what the hadith says? It says this. It says because Hussein's blood was spilt, then horses trampled over his body, and that blood began to splash. Wherever the blood went, it made the khaq shifa. It's one of the tradition that says 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers. That is the vicinity of the haram, 2 kilometers. You know why? Because Hussein's blood was spread 2 kilometers. Imagine that Imam Hussein. Right. Look, honestly, Allah give all of you an opportunity, at least once in your life, to go for the ziyarah of Hussein. Once in your life to go for Arba'in. Some of you will be walking. You'll be going this year, you'll be walking. I remember 1 or 2 of you may have been with me when we were walking. And honestly, you go there, you see it. You know, I tell you, there was a time we were walking, and honestly, now it's coming to my mind, I'll tell you. And the reason why I want to tell you this is because I want you to become like that. There was a time when all of us started to cry. A couple of brothers from Dar es Salaam, a couple of brothers from Toronto, and some from America. We were walking all together. Now you know how Ahl Iraq are like when it comes. They give everything that they have. They've got the love in their heart. They give for the sake of Imam Hussein. One child came in front of us. That child didn't have any shoes on. Must have been about this high. I estimate he must have been 5, 6 years old. Didn't have any shoes on. When he came, his feet were blistered. But he had these tissues in his hand and he comes forward. You know what he says? He says, Sayyid, can you take the tissue? I said, son, you might need it. You know what he replied? He says, I don't have any food to give you because my mother and father were killed by ISIS. I don't have any water to give you. I've only got tissues to give you. I said, why? He says, so on the day of judgment, I can say to Fatima al-Zahra, I did something for her, Hussein. Now ask, what can you do for Hussein? Not everything's for recognition. Some things are done privately in such a way that you find the recognition is up there. You know what the problem is today? Everything has become commercialized. When things become commercialized and spirit goes, then what happens? When the spirit goes and the connection goes. Make a connection of the heart in such a way that what you do for Ahlul Bayt. It's nights like these where you've been told, look inside of your heart. Look, I'm going to give you a tradition. Look, you're here to cry. I had a speech prepared, which today I haven't even mentioned a word of it. The reason being is this, because sometimes it just comes out what we need to hear. I'm going to give you a tradition though. I was noticing when Mir Bhai was reciting, when he was reciting about a daughter, I saw all of those fathers who have daughters. All of them were crying more. You know why? Because there's a special connection between a father and a daughter. You're not going to know until you don't have daughters. You know what Abdul Muttalib says? He says, have 1 son, have 2 sons, have 10 sons, have 1 daughter though. You know why? Because she's going to remember you when nobody else does. At night time when you come home, when your daughter's young, you've seen, she waits up for you, says to the mother, let me wait up so my father can come back home, then I'll go to sleep. And mum will be saying, go to sleep, and she'll wait. Father comes, she runs to the chest of her father. Right? As the child grows older, that girl, she phones you to say, Father, where are you? It's late, right? It's not your wife who calls, it's your daughter. Now ask that father whose daughter gets married, how much his heart breaks to see his daughter go. But you know, that connection still doesn't leave. When that daughter's in problems, she doesn't call her husband, but she calls her father to say, Father, I'm in problems. However old the father gets, and know something. God forbid your father's not left in this world. Then at that moment you know that there's not a day that goes by that you don't sit down and remember how my father would hug me and how my father would kiss me on the... Now imagine this. That's you. That's your heart. Now imagine what Hussein's heart is. Let me give you a tradition. Tradition starts here. It says one day Imam Zain al-Abidin was sitting crying. Somebody comes to him to say, Mawla, what are you crying for? You know what he replies? He says, I miss my Sakina. He says, what do you miss about Sakina? You know what he replies? He says, she was very thirsty. What do you mean? He says, Yazid's army would drink, then the horses would drink. What was remaining from the horses, Sakina would stand back and allow all the other children to drink. If there was anything left, she would go and she would take the water. She would bring it to me. She would put it over my chains because she knew that I was burning with those chains. At that moment, my sister would be so thirsty. Her lips would be moving, but she wouldn't complain. He says, what else do you miss about your sister? You know what he replies? He says that when Umar ibn Sa'd used to make me walk over thorny bushes. As I used to walk over those bushes, I would say, my sister would come. She said, brother, what's happened? Said, there's thorns in my feet. With a small hand, she would pick out one by one each one of those thorns. Says, but what could I do when they made Sakina walk over thorns? My arms were tied behind my back in such a way that this brother was helpless. Imam Sajjad asks, what goes on the heart of Sajjad? You know what the Imam says? Look, you won't be able to take it, and nor can I recite it. I'm going to go slowly, therefore. You know why? Because this is the night for your connection. May Zahara accept you. Let me give you a tradition. Arba'in is coming. Look, I'll give you this tradition. Take a breath because you can't cry continuously. You know what the riwayat says? Riwayat says the 12th of Muharram comes. Bani Asad is standing in the maqtal. They're looking at arms at one side. They're looking at feet on the other side. As they look up, they say, whose bodies are these? How are we going to bury them? From a distance, a person is coming on a horse. That person's arms are chained and his feet are chained. As he comes, he chucks himself onto the floor. When he chucks himself, the riwayat says, he begins to walk through all of the bodies. As he walks through all of the bodies, he comes to one body which was desecrated in the maqtal, puts his arms on that body, and he just says one thing. He says, Father, after you, they would lash me on the back. Father, after you, they would tie my arms. Father, after you, they would tie my chest. Father, after you, they would hit your Zainab. Father, after you, they would slap your Sakina. And then at that moment, as he begins to cry, Bani Asad come to him and they say something. They say, we're perplexed. We don't know what these bodies are. Imam Sajjad looks up, he says, you see that body over there? He says, yes, that's Habib ibn Mawahir's body. They say, he's from our Qabila. Go, they bury him. Look up and they say something. He says, they say, oh prisoner, oh man in chains, tell me something. He says, what? That small body that's desecrated, whose body is that? He replies, that's Qasim's body. He looks up and he says, that arm that's lying over there, whose arm is that? So that's Abbas's arm. He said, what about that left arm that's lying there? He says, that's also Abbas's arm. He says, what about that young man lying there with his chest open? He said, that's Ali Akbar. He looks up and he says, all of Bani Asad begin to cry. Say, why are you crying for? He said, this 6-month-old baby without a neck, why doesn't it have a neck for? You know what the reply came? The reply was this: on the 11th of Muharram, when Umar ibn Sa'd said, there's 71 bodies, but there's one body missing. Find that body. Gives hukum. He says, 4 men ride and find that body. In the tradition it says, spears in their hand, they begin to hit it on the ground. As they begin to hit it on the ground, Rabab looks up towards Husain's body puts her hand on her chest. One time they hit it, nothing happens. Twice they hit it, nothing happens. Third time, on the fourth time when they hit it, a small child comes up. The head was dangling. Shimmer walks forward, takes a knife, cuts the small head. Mother falls to the ground. Head is raised in the sky. Doesn't stop there though. You know what Imam Zain al-Abidin now does? He begins to walk to the Furat. He says, leave me now. I'm going to the Furat. As he gets there, looks to the Furat. He says, uncle, you're Zainab. Takes his abaf, puts it down on the floor. In the tradition it says this, lifts up the shoulders, the ribs collapse, lifts up the legs, the other side, brings everything together. Ayatollah Mehdi Bahr al-Ulum says when he was there, in the Sardar, he says, don't ask me why Abbas's grave is so small. You don't know what happened. They were taking steel and hitting Abbas's body in such a way. His body was scattered. Still doesn't stop here. Now, Zain al-Abidin moves towards the final body. As he gets there, the riwayat says, 3 lights come from heaven. As they come, Imam puts his hand under the broken ribs of his father. One light grabs the shoulders, other grabs the bottom of Imam Husain's back, the other one grabs the legs. Imam Zain al-Abidin goes into the grave. Riwayat says this, when 3 of them were holding the body, one other light comes. When that light comes, she's holding her rib and she's holding her back, and she just says something. She says, Zain al-Abidin, be careful, my son's body is broken. Look, you can't take anymore, but I just want to recite to you one thing, because tonight is the night of Sakina. Honestly, I'd recite more, but I don't think you'll be able to take it. I just want to give you one thing so it connects onto your masah. One thing only. You know something? You know why Imam Sajjad would cry a lot? There's a tradition that says he would cry a lot. I'm going to mention to you 3 things why. Ghusl and kafan of Sakina made Imam Sajjad cry. The reason being is this: when Zainab poured the water over the head of Sakina, hair began to shred. Zainab comes to Zain al-Abidin, why is the hair falling? You know what the reply was? It's a Shimmer would hold her hair. He would pull her by the hair. Because he would pull her by the hair, hair began to shred. Doesn't stop here though. Again they cry. Again they come back. Says, what is it? Says, the body has a mold on it. The body has a mold on it. Says, that's not mold. It says this. Hamid ibn Muslim says, Shimmer grabbed Sakina, brought her in front of the body of Abbas, slapped her on the face in such a way, Sakina fell to the ground. As she fell to the ground, she would say to Imam Husain's head, Father, forgive me that I stutter in my speech, but when Shimmer slapped me, it was so hard. Final thing, and that's it. You know what that final thing was? One more thing would make Imam Sajjad cry. You know what he say? He would say this: when Sakina took the head of her father, she put her hand under the beard of her father, removed the tears from his eyes, removed the blood from his lips, and said, Father, look at Nasib. Yesterday I would sleep on your chest, Father. Today you're on my chest, Father. But Father, open your eyes and tell me, Father, those earrings that you gave me on Eid day, Father, who took my earrings away? Maulana Hussain.